You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Episode number 17 of Minor League Baseball's The Show Before the Show podcast coming at you. Hi, everybody. I'm Tyler Maughan, Jake Seiner in New York City. Packed show, packed week this week. The Major League Baseball trade deadline coming up in about 10 days. The signing deadline for 2015 draft picks is already passed. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Big week, Jake.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. We're going to talk about a guy who has not played a minor league game yet, and then a bunch of guys who have played a whole lot of them and are hoping to stop playing in the minors.
Very soon. For some of them.
Yes.
Very soon.
For some of them, yes.
We'll dive right in. Strike one, this week's edition of Three Strikes here on the Show Before the Show, which, as always, you can find on iTunes and on MILB.com, and you can rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast at iTunes, and submit us your questions. If you have any questions you would like us to cover in Three Strikes or elsewhere, podcast at MILB.com. But let's dive in. First overall pick of the 2015 MLB First-Year Player Draft has signed. It came down to almost the last minute, but Dansby Swanson, the shortstop out of Vanderbilt, has signed. He has joined the Arizona Diamondbacks and will head directly to Class A Advanced Visalia. And Jake and I, before the show, did some research. It's been a long time since there has been a bat taken, a college bat, in the top overall pick in the draft that has gone directly to high A. So this is a pretty interesting move for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, you said it was 1998. Pat Burrell was the last time that a first overall pick college bat went to Advanced A to start the season. Just even recent history for first round picks and bats. The only guy since 2011 to make that jump in that way was James Ramsey with the Cardinals in 2011. A couple other guys have been sent directly to Class A. Tim Anderson with Kannapolis. Colin Moran went to Greensboro with the Marlins. Stephen Piscotty, who we'll talk a little bit more about later, but he went straight to Quad Cities that same year that Ramsey did with the Cardinals. But kind of an unusual move, and unusual more because it seems like if anybody was going to make this jump, and this isn't a dig at Dansby Swanson, because I think he's a pretty advanced player, but we've seen even guys like Chris Bryant and Kyle Schwarber get sent to Class A short season. Michael Conforto was a really advanced bat. He started in short season Brooklyn. This is a pretty unusual move for the Diamondbacks. Which doesn't mean it's bad. I just think it's interesting. The reason the teams usually send guys to those short season teams is because those teams, those affiliates, are sort of designed to take in those college players who have just finished that college season, have never played in a professional environment, but have some experience with at least playing in more official capacities, playing in major colleges or something. But there's a lot of time with those Class A short season teams just working on this is what time you come to the ballpark. This is what time we take batting practice. This is sort of the scouting notes we're going to be able to give you. This is how we want you to interpret that. This is sort of how we want to set up your professional routine. And that's something that's usually easier to do when you're working with a whole bunch of guys who are making that same transition at the same time, as opposed to Swanson's going to go to Class A Advanced Visalia, be with a bunch of guys who have been in the minors for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. You can get some guys in their mid-20s probably hanging around on that roster. It's going to kind of is more of a challenge for Swanson, just saying we're kind of going to throw you into the deep end, and probably speaks well to what the Diamondbacks know about him and his makeup, that they'd throw him into that. But it also seems like, if you think he's going to be at Visalia by the end of the year, you just still give him those couple weeks in short season in Hillsboro and let him get his feet wet there. So an aggressive move, and one that I guess signals well about what the Diamondbacks think about Swanson and his makeup and everything. But we've talked a little bit about the Diamondbacks in recent weeks, and I don't know if this is the same kind of head scratcher as the Tuki Toussaint trade or some of the things we talked about around the Peter O'Brien situation. But another interesting and unusual move for the Diamondbacks, certainly not afraid to do things a little differently than the rest of baseball.
There's something in the Mountain Time Zone where teams are just trying kind of odd, quirky things on their own. The Diamondbacks, I mean, like you said with Tukey, we've seen so much strangeness, I guess, come out of that whole situation. Even in a quote that Tukey gave yesterday to Danny Wilde in a story after he threw 6 no-hit innings for Rome, he said, the Diamondbacks are the Diamondbacks and the Braves are the Braves. And so this will be a very fascinating test of the Diamondbacks player development process to see how Dansby Swanson starts to develop. Now, according to dbacks.com, he will begin his minor league career with a, quote, brief stint in the Arizona League. So his first real day-to-day exposure to the minor league lifestyle, as Jake's talking about, is going to come at a pretty advanced level. And that is the crux of this whole situation, because if you want to get an advanced college bat to develop as a baseball player, that's a great idea. But not a whole lot of guys are able to handle that transition while doing it at such a high level because of the stuff that Jake pointed out, because of learning your daily routine, because it's not like college where you're going to play 4 or 5 days a week. Here you're going to be playing 6 to 7 days a week, every week, riding the buses, going to the ballpark at certain times every day, getting your early work in, hitting in the cage, hitting off of tees, doing all that kind of stuff. It's not just show up to the ballpark and play a game. There's a lot of other stuff in the lifestyle that goes into it. So to do that, to get acclimated to that while doing it at a very high level is also going to be an interesting task, not just to see what Dansby Swanson's able to do on the field, but off the field, how he acclimatizes to that life as well.
Yeah, and we're talking about this probably more than it even deserves to be talked about in a way, because it's probably going to end up being a no big deal thing, but it's just one of those where it's a little bit of a risk to just throw more at Dansby Swanson as he's making this transition, which is going to be a difficult transition at any level, just going in and playing pro baseball for the first time, dealing with all of those different aspects, and also just the fact that he's going to see guys throwing 95 on a near daily basis now for the first time in his career. So the thing is if you do this, you're hopefully looking, I guess, to get him at Double-A to start next year, which is reasonable. We've seen that with some recent bats with Chris Bryant and Kyle Schwarber and Conforto got there. But those guys also, they started in short season ball. They got to kind of transition with everybody else, and they got to a few of them got to Class A advance by the end of the year. So just it's an interesting thing that I guess is interesting to me maybe because we're so close to this and so close to the process, but just that the D-backs would do that. We're going to move on to strike 2. We're going to talk about Pirates right-hander Tyler Glasnow, who is quickly rounding into form and looking like a guy who maybe doesn't need to be in Double-A much longer. Glasnow opened the season with Double-A Altoona. In early May, he suffered an ankle injury and landed on the disabled list, and he's come back. He just made his 4th or 5th start with Double-A Altoona since the injury. He's thrown a couple of consecutive scoreless outings. He's got 13 straight scoreless innings. He's got a 16-0 strikeout to walk ratio in that time. And the 0 walks are a big thing with Glasnow. He's a guy who, not that his walk numbers have been out of control throughout his minor league career, but he's a 6'8" fireballer who, the thing holding him back has never been his stuff. It's always been just getting that command into form and into a place where he's going to, not walk too many guys, not work too many deep counts, be able to work deeper into games. And he's doing that very, very consistently now. He's gone deeper in 3 straight games, considering his pitch count and everything. He's only walked 1 guy in his last 3 games. I talked to him after his most recent start over the weekend, and he said that the fastball command, he actually kind of thought he had things figured out in April whenever he started the season, and going into May, felt like he had really turned a corner there. Being comfortable with things in the past, his process on the mound had been a lot of thinking about mechanics and making sure that he knows where his left foot is landing, where his right arm is coming up, the arm angle of what he's throwing, just all the things that kind of go through a pitcher's head that you can focus on when you're thinking about mechanics. And he made the conscious decision this year to worry a little bit less about that, and also a little bit less about in-game adjustments for if the curveball doesn't feel perfectly, like it's coming out of his hand perfectly. He's going to say, okay, I'll just work with the fastball or the changeup, and he has the deep enough repertoire now where he can say, I don't have this pitch, I can work these other pitches as long as they feel okay. So where in the past he was making a lot of adjustments in games, now he's kind of settling in, making sure he has the fastball command, not worrying so much about which off-speed pitches is on that day, but just making sure he has 1 or 2 of those. And then just trying to be more athletic in his delivery. He said that's something where he's just trying to sort of have more of a feel and more of a just trusting his mechanics are going to be good, or certainly he's close enough to the baseline that he set for himself that he's going to be able to deliver the fastball where he wants to. And that's been working really, really well. Now, he says the ankle injury still bothers him a little bit. It's just a little stiff, no pain or anything. It's one of those that's a little slow to totally disappear, but it hasn't really affected his command, especially in the last 2 starts. He said it's felt a lot better, and especially in his last one over the weekend. But that's a really good sign for Pirates fans. Not that the rotation is in dire need in the major leagues, but Glasnow certainly could provide a boost either in the rotation or in the bullpen. Certainly has the stuff to do that, and his fastball command continues to be as good as it's been in Double-A. He doesn't necessarily need a whole lot of time in Triple-A working on the pitchability stuff. His stuff is good enough. He's going to succeed in the majors just with the catcher calling his pitches for him in a lot of ways. So a really good sign there.
You know what is crazy is the Pirates have been so good for the last few seasons at the major league level, and starting pitching has been a big key to that, but they've done it without yet getting major contributions from Jameson Taillon. Tyler Glasnow has been in the system for a while. Pirates fans, it probably feels like they've been waiting for him for a long time. But Garrett Cole has been the guy to graduate and really head that line of paraded pitchers that are coming up through the ranks in the system. Glasnow, I think the most impressive thing to me about Tyler Glasnow is you think at every level he's going to be challenged more than he is. He's only 21, so he's dominating the Eastern League at a very young age for that level. But he did the same exact thing last year in Bradenton. Last year at 20 years old, a 12-5 record, a 1.74 ERA, and 23 starts for Class A Advanced Bradenton. This year at the AA level, at 21, a 4-2 record, a 2.12 season-long ERA. In his career, he's got an ERA of under 2. It's 1.99. I think you hit something very aptly, Jake, that people worry about a lot with guys like this. His frame, his build, his size. He's listed at 6'8", 225. Sometimes you worry about how is that going to affect a guy's ability to repeat his delivery. How's it going to affect his command? I mean, obviously with a power pitcher, that's even more of a worry for a bigger guy. But throughout this entire season at both levels, he made 2 appearances for West Virginia in the New York Penn League in a rehab appearance when coming back from the injury. Between the 2 levels this year, he's walked 15 batters in his 12 total appearances. So it's not even like a batter per inning ratio that you talk about with him. It's like a batter per outing ratio that you talk about with him. Overall season long, 66 Ks and 56 and a third innings and just 15 walks. So that's a huge encouraging sign. And yeah, I mean, like you said, when you started talking, maybe he's ready for something higher than the AA level. And at 21 years old, that's pretty huge for Pirates fans.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm talking to Pirates people before the season. It's been pretty evident that they've had a very direct plan of promoting Glasnow through his career. He's been on pretty strict innings limits. He's gone just a level per year. He was in West Virginia in 2013, Bradenton last year. They said this was sort of the year he had now checked all the boxes that they kind of look for in their development as far as increasing his innings and getting him to improve each of his pitches at each level. The Pirates tend to work a little more on the changeup at West Virginia, or fastball command rather at West Virginia, and the changeup at Bradenton, and Glasnow kind of fit into the box with wanting to work on those things at those levels. He was in a position before the season where the Pirates were essentially saying, yeah, if he pitches well, he's going to move quicker. He's going to do 2, maybe 3 levels in a year, 3 levels being the major leagues. They were open to that going into the season. So the ankle injury was a real shame because he was pitching well enough that probably he would have done that, probably would have moved really quickly if not for the ankle injury. But he's now back into that form, and I got to think 1 or 2 more starts as dominant as what he's done his last 2 or 3 times out. Just has to get him at least to Indianapolis. And look, with his stuff, if he's spotting the fastball and has the secondary stuff to go with that on any kind of consistent basis, there's not anything he needs to prove in the minor leagues. There'll be some adjustments to make in the majors, obviously, and how he employs that stuff, but it's going to be so far beyond the threshold of what's necessary to succeed in the majors. He's going to be fine right from the start.
There is one guy who doesn't have anything left to prove in the minor leagues, according to his major league organization, and that is top St. Louis Cardinals prospect Stephen Piscotty, who rounds out 3 strikes this week. He is getting the call. We're recording this on Tuesday. He is set to join the St. Louis Cardinals today for their game against the White Sox. Stanford University product. He was taken 36th overall in the supplemental first round in 2012, and it seems like we've waited for a while to see him come to the major league level just because he reached higher levels so fast. In 2012, he's taken. In 2013, he's already in AA. And now over the last couple of years, he's gotten so much experience at the AAA level that he, I think, has learned how to be that high-level prospect now without having really too many transitions throughout his minor league career. But, Jacob, what do you expect to see from Stephen Piscotty now that he's finally making that leap after basically 2 full years in AAA?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where he kind of fits in. I mean, I think when the Cardinals acquired Jason Hayward, it kind of put Piscotty on a wait and see for another year. I think he's sort of the primary backup plan is what I would guess for Hayward. If Hayward, obviously if there's an injury or something this year, but if they don't get Hayward re-signed at the end of the year. And I think he's going to provide something that's a little bit different, but he's going to provide it in a different way, but the overall contribution is going to be very similar. One of the things that really stands out about Piscotty, he was drafted in 2012 as a third baseman, and they pretty much immediately moved him to right field, where he's become one of the best defenders in the outfield, in a corner outfield spot in the minor leagues. I profiled him a couple times in the D-List series they do before every season. I really profiled him actually before the 2014 season. His manager with Palm Beach in 2013, Johnny Rodriguez. said it's not quite a Raul Mondesi type arm, but it's not very far from it. When he lets the ball go, it really travels. So he's a guy who's going to get on some highlight reels with some throws from the outfield. His range out there is very good. He's probably not going to be able to handle center. He's not quite up to the same level as Jason Hayward, but he is the kind of guy that contributes a similar thing there. At the plate, he's a little bit different than Hayward. He's a right-handed hitter, makes a lot of contact, has a really, really polished approach. He's a guy who's going to drop plenty of walks as long as the opportunity is there. The thing he'd been lacking coming into the season, and you can still kind of make this case, at least for a corner outfield profile, is there's not a ton of power there. He had 15 home runs in 2013, split between two levels. Last year, he spent the whole year at AAA and only hit 9 home runs. He's been better this year. He's already up to 11 home runs in 87 games. His .475 slugging percentage is just about the best of his career. So he's hitting for more power this year, and he's sold out a little bit on the strikeouts for that. He made a little more contact last season. He's already actually struck out more this year than he did last year, despite playing, was it like 50 more games last year. But I think that's been a good way to go about that for him. A good adjustment for him is selling out a little bit for that power. I think probably to be a corner outfielder, even if you are an outstanding defender, you got to be able to hit 15 or so home runs a season to really justify an everyday role. I think Piscotty has that in him, but that might be closer to his ceiling than other guys. But I think batting average is going to be pretty good. I think the on-base percentage is going to be great, and the defense is going to be really good. And he's a smart guy, heady base runner, does a lot of things just well, kind of that good. Talking about the Cardinal way, or just the guys who are heads-up ball players. It's raised for the makeup and everything. So checks a lot of boxes. I don't know if he had more power. I guess maybe there'd be a little more upside here. I'm not sure if he's ever going to be an all-star MVP candidate, but could be one of those guys who rates out really well with the advanced metrics because of his defense and his ability to get on base and his general well-roundedness.
The one thing that really fascinates me about the Cardinals is how adept they are at shifting guys around defensively, no matter how they come into the organization. If guys come in, like Piscotty, who came in at one position, moved to the outfield after being a third baseman in college, then he goes to first base, tries out a bunch of different areas to figure out the best fit for him. So many organizations, I think, when they attempt that, they're not successful, or they're worried to attempt it in the first place and really mess with a guy's development. But the Cardinals, if you look at like the rash of best Cardinals prospects over the last 5 years or so, I would say almost a majority of them came into the organization at one position and have graduated from the minor league ranks at a different position from what they were in high school or in college. That's a really impressive thing for a major league organization to be able to do. And I think Piscotty's an interesting one because he doesn't necessarily provide the pop that you would expect at the positions that he's played, but he's diversified himself. So now if the Cardinals need to use him in multiple spots, they have that option for him, especially if he's going to be coming off the bench, if that's going to be his role largely to get things started in his St. Louis career. That's where the Cardinals are successful, is they give those guys that diverse defensive profile to be able to do a whole lot of different things. So it'll be a fun one to keep an eye on as he graduates, because we have kind of been waiting for this for, like I said, it feels like a while, and Stephen Piscotty finally gets to make his major league debut in front of Cardinals fans just 3 years after he was taken in the supplemental first round of the 2012 draft. That'll wrap up Three Strikes for this week. Coming up next, Jake and I are going to take a look at how the second half may look in Major League Baseball as it pertains to prospects, who we want to see in the major leagues, guys who may be there, guys who we know probably won't be there. We're going to each take a handful of them and discuss who we want to see before the 2015 season is out at the big league level. That's coming up next. We're getting close to the time of year where you start wondering what the future looks like for a ton of organizations. The second wild card position in the American and National Leagues has made it a little bit different from how it would have been a few years ago, when you kind of know who the sellers are, you know who the buyers are, and you know what that means for each side of the line. With the second wild card spot, a lot more teams feel like they're involved in the playoff race, and maybe that makes for a less active trade market from year to year. But there are going to be some teams come August who are not involved in the postseason race in Major League Baseball, and those teams are going to look toward the future, and that's what Jake and I are going to do. We're going to look into our crystal balls and pick out a few guys who we hope to see at the Major League level before this year is over. Now, a lot of this could be wishful thinking, some younger guys who probably aren't going to get a shot, but we still would love to see. So that's the task now, is picking out a handful of guys who you could see at the big leagues at that level toward the end of the year, and what we expect to see from them should they get that call. Jake, start us off. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a pretty obvious one, a guy who's getting a lot of push from his fans to get in the majors. It's Michael Conforto with the Mets. He's been at Double-A Binghamton for 42 games now. He's hitting .325. He has 5 homers, .938 OPS. Just a remarkably advanced approach. We talked a little bit about that in the first segment, how coming out of college, he was an Oregon State product, drafted 10th overall by the Mets in 2014. Came out of college with a really advanced approach. He's a corner outfielder, not going to contribute a whole lot out there defensively, but is probably going to be the best hitter in the Mets outfield as soon as he gets to the majors. I think he's already probably the best outfield hitter in that entire organization. Might be among the best hitters there in general, kind of willing to even throw that in there. He doesn't have a ton of raw power. It's probably more closer to above average than being like a Joey Gallo 80 grade, 90 grade power guy. But he taps into that power so much more often than a lot of other guys. He has really, really kind of remarkable all-fields approach. He's not actually too dissimilar from other guys in the system like Brandon Nemo and Dom Smith or other guys that the Mets have drafted in the first round. All those guys, the thing they have in common is they're really, really good at using the whole field. What separates Conforto's bat from those guys is that he manages to do that while tapping into power and while swinging with authority in the right counts. Has a really good feel for that, when to really let it loose, when to settle for just a line drive out to left field. Just really, really polished. I think he's certainly on the team that thinks he's ready to contribute and would transition relatively seamlessly for a prospect going into the major leagues. Obviously, you can't say that with full certainty that he's not going to face some kind of adjustment and struggle a little bit, but I think he's a better bet than most to transition well based on his skill set, and a guy who, the Mets, they need offense, and it's going to cost them something to trade for a proven bat. I think they might be better served just letting Conforto go out there in one of the corners and stick him in the middle of the lineup and just see what you have there. I think that's maybe a safer gamble than giving up something like a Gavin Cecchini or one of your other pitchers trying to get a bat for just the second half of the season.
We should clarify real quick that we're talking about guys who have yet to make their major league debuts, because if not for that stipulation, I think both of us would probably talk about Joey Gallo very early on in this conversation. But I'm going to stay on that same side of the infield, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Corey Seager, because Seager is, I think, the most anticipated next piece of the Dodgers puzzle to come up, especially with a team that acquired a veteran guy in Jimmy Rollins and what that'll mean for him going forward. But Seager has handled pretty much everything he's been asked to do. We saw him just tear up the Texas League for the first month of the season, and now having made the jump to AAA, he's 21 years old, and even though I think he's gone through some of those adjustment periods where, for the month of May, he was fantastic. OPS 796, batted 300. June, he was just as good. He actually OPS a little bit higher at 799 and batted 278. July, he somewhat swooned with a 255 average, but the OPS is still almost about the same at 788. He's handled that transition so remarkably well, and we haven't seen those big swings in the pendulum that you see a lot of times from guys like that, especially younger guys who go to such advanced levels. So often you'll see a guy jump to a new level, just blow up for his first month or so, and then especially in AAA, pitchers get that figured out pretty quickly. But we have not seen really long stretches at all from Corey Seager where he has struggled to adjust. And he just does everything well. The stuff that you hear from scouts and from player development people and coaching staffs on Corey Seager, so many times Razor Shines actually said in an interview that he had run out of words to describe what Corey Seager does. That's how good that kid is, and he does everything well. I think that's what makes him so interesting as a prospect. Is it's not just that he's a shortstop who hits well. He's a good defensive player. He's just an overall pretty complete package, and you don't necessarily think of the Dodgers that way. We've talked about this from time to time. You think about the Dodgers now as this freewheeling, big-spending team, but they're developing a lot of these guys, and Corey Seager is definitely at the forefront of that movement.
Yeah, so I think with the first and second picks in this little draft we're doing, we knocked out the two obvious selections. Now we get to have a little fun, kind of change it up a little bit. So my next guy I want to talk about is Minnesota Twins right-handed pitcher Jose Berrios, who he only has 3 starts in AAA. He has a 5.60 ERA in those starts, but he's striking out well over a batter an inning. He's keeping the ball in the strike zone. He's hard to hit home runs off of. He's only 6 foot, but he is possibly the most competitive guy of all the top prospects right now in the upper minors. Just has a real personal drive, and I think that demeanor was something that got away from him a little bit early in his career, and is now something that's, especially last year, he worked on this, being able to corral that energy and that competitive fire and really apply it in the right ways on the mound. Pairs that just with a deep repertoire and a repertoire with a whole bunch of above average pitches and a couple plus pitches mixed in there. I think he's ready. I think he's maybe the least likely of all the guys we're going to talk about to actually get to the majors this year in any kind of meaningful way, just because the Twins are trying to compete, and I think they have a tendency to rely a little more on veteran guys maybe than some teams. But I think Barrios is the guy that I think is of all those guys at AAA, those pitchers who are waiting there, I think the most ready, and the one, frankly, that I want to see the most, because I think he's going to be a guy who has a repertoire that's deep enough that it's going to be interesting to see how it stacks up against major league hitters, how he kind of applies that, and just generally kind of, I think he's tough enough and has the mentality that even if he goes up and struggles a little bit, it's not going to knock him down and ruin his confidence or something. I think he's a guy who's ready for that kind of challenge. I think if the Twins were, not still kind of hanging on in the playoff race, then maybe he'd be more likely to get up there and sort of on a see what the kid can do kind of basis. I'm not sure he's the kind of guy you call up in the middle of a pennant race hoping that he can, turn things around, do a David Price or something, but definitely a guy that I would like to see up there.
And he is one of the best Twitter showmen out there, hashtag push the game. So you got that going for you, too. I'm going to go with a pitcher as well with my second selection, top Rockies prospect Jon Gray. We've talked about a little bit. The situation with Jon Gray right now is an interesting one. A story came out this week that it looks like not only is he going to be a part of the Rockies rotation for the next week or so, they've said that they're going to go with a 4-man rotation until about the end of the month. But even beyond that, he may not be up. This has turned into a strange situation here. I'm based in Denver, and this has been a very hot topic for really the last 2 months or so. I mean, ever since Jon Gray really started to take off, this has been a big topic because at the start of the season, he'd be the first person to tell you he was absolutely abysmal through the month of April for the AAA Albuquerque Isotopes. But since then, he's been good in basically every single time out. He's rocketed up to the top of the PCL leaderboard in strikeouts, which is what you really want to see out of a guy like Jon Gray. And I think more than anything, he's learning how to have the mentality to defeat AAA lineups. What makes this so interesting right now is that the Rockies have said, Rockies general manager Jeff Bridich has said last year he was the driving force behind the call-up of Eddie Butler to the major leagues. And Eddie Butler struggled toward the end of last season, the beginning of this year. Had some very good outings, had some very, very rough outings as well. He is now back in AAA. The Rockies don't want to make that same mistake with Jon Gray and promote him too soon. Now, that being said, in his last 15 outings, Gray has an ERA of 3.32. He's struck out 80 batters in 86 2/3, and he's only walked 29. There are still some benchmarks the Rockies are really looking for him to hit. They want him to be more efficient with his pitches. I think his most recent outing is probably the most emblematic example of that. He threw 64 pitches over his first 3 innings, but he only threw 20 over his last 2. And he actually did so, this is over the weekend, in the presence of Rockies player development director Zach Wilson and actually Rockies owner Dick Monfort, who were both in the ballpark in Albuquerque to take in that start. Jon Gray has been terrific, really, ever since the start of the month of May, but the Rockies want him to be more efficient. They've also said they want to see more sharpness on his breaking stuff. I believe that he will get this call. Some of these guys that we're going to talk about today probably won't this year. I think that Jon Gray is on the docket. He did tell a reporter earlier this week that he's trying not to pay attention to the rumors, but it is frustrating. He feels like he's ready for Major League Baseball. The Rockies right now, I think, are just kind of caught between the rock and the hard place of, do we feel like he is 100% ready, while weighing that against, do we want to see him in the major leagues and really test out what he can do before the end of this season? So he's my next selection because he's one of the most exciting prospects in the minors, a fire-breathing type of guy who has devastating breaking stuff when it's working well, very good off-speed stuff. He commands his stuff very well, especially for a big-body type of pitcher. Jon Gray is, I think the training wheels have been off with him for a while now, and once he makes it to the major leagues, he's going to be a very exciting prospect to watch.
Yeah, definitely with you on all of that. For my last guy, we'll transition back into the infield. I want to talk about a guy who I know is a favorite of yours and has been a personal favorite of mine just since I did some interviews and stuff with people over the offseason. That's Orlando Arcia with the Brewers. He's a shortstop who, for the last few years, has been considered one of the better defensive shortstops in the minor leagues. Has, more than enough athleticism over there, a great arm, but really stands out for his instincts and his consistency and just the overall polish that's been there from a very young age. The question with Arcia has kind of always been, how much is he going to hit? I think he was regarded as mostly a slap-hitting guy with that much power in the lower minors. Showed a little bit more last year in the Florida State League, and still not a huge power threat, but is hitting the ball with a lot more authority this year with AA Biloxi. He's hitting .309. He has 5 homers, 25 doubles, 14 stolen bases. The OPS is up over 800. Just has, I think we talked about this a little bit last week or at some point recently, there was a comp that we got from one of his coaches on sort of a Vlad Guerrero approach and doesn't have necessarily the power that Guerrero had, but is going to be able to swing at everything and get away with it, a little bit of a Pablo Sandoval or something, except he's an excellent defensive shortstop, so he doesn't need to hit a whole lot to justify his position. And I also know just from talking to Brewers people in the offseason, there were coaches who he's played for who thought that before even this season, he was ready to go to the major leagues and hold his own. And they understood, obviously, that's not something that's going to happen, but if there was an injury or something, they needed a shortstop just for 4 or 5 games, Arcia was the guy they were absolutely going to recommend to the staff to say, hey, he's ready, he's competent, he's going to be able to hold his own, he has the confidence to do this, the awareness and everything. I think at this point it's pretty much safe to say that the Jean Segura experiment at shortstop is not really working. Segura, he had that awesome first half in 2013. He had 325, had 11 home runs. He hasn't hit since. He got hurt in the second half, so he didn't play a whole lot in 2013, but he hit 241 with just 1 home run then. He's been a well below average hitter the last 2 years since. He was really bad last year. He's been marginally better this year. Fangraphs has him worth 0.3 wins above replacement over the last 2 years combined. So he's basically been a replacement level player. Arcia, I think, is the future of the Brewers franchise. I think he's going to be the best of the shortstops they've developed over the last 10 or 15 years, and they developed some good ones. I think he's going to be better than Alcides Escobar. I think he might be better than J.J. Hardy. I think the ceiling here is maybe more than we all recognized coming into the season, and I think he's already really close to being able to produce at a really high level. I think a guy that they should be blocking into that starting spot next spring, and probably you want to see just make sure he's ready and get him that requisite experience in the majors this fall just to make sure he's there. But I would expect to see him at least in September. If it was me, I'd probably push him even sooner. I don't think his approach, I don't think has a whole lot left to prove at Double-A. I think he's really advanced and really ready.
He's another one of those guys who, when you listen to people in the organization and outside the organization talk about his talent, I think he has probably raised his stock as much as anybody, especially a top 100 prospect this year. I mean, he came in kind of toward the back half of those really highly touted guys in the MLB.com top 100, but what he's been able to do this season puts him in that conversation of probably the 1.5 tier maybe prospects. He's going to be fun. He's a complete package as well, like a lot of these guys we've talked about. I'm going to close mine out with a throwaway, and I will fully admit that that's probably what it's going to be. But this is complete wishful thinking. If I could get a chance to see somebody in the major leagues before the end of the year, I want to see Julio Urias in the major leagues. It's not going to happen. He's 18 years old, but
I wouldn't be so sure about that. I could see him in early. That's not it's a long shot, but I don't think it's impossible.
So far this year, and Urias has had a kind of an interesting season in the way that his last 2 months have gone. Talk about that in a second. But to start the year as an 18-year-old in Double-A Tulsa, these are his numbers through 7 starts. A 1-2 record, but a 3 even ERA, 46 strikeouts against 9 walks in 36 innings. He's only given up 3 home runs. Opponents are batting 194 against him, and he's 18 years old. Now, Urias at the end of May had surgery to remove a benign mass from his left eye, and that's knocked him out of action. This is something that he's dealt with his entire life. He actually had some surgeries before to try to correct that issue. They never took. He gave one of the most tremendous quotes I've ever heard to the Los Angeles Times before the season when he said, "God gave me a bad left eye but a good left arm." And the Dodgers in May presented that to him basically as something that they wanted to do as kind of a gift to Julio Urias. So he had surgery to correct the issue with his eye. And since then, he's only pitched in 2 games. They've both been at the rookie level, Arizona League level. But so far, his 3 innings there on July 10th and 16th, 2 hits, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, has not allowed a run. And it seems like he is the same guy. They're not going to give him a ton of innings there. When he's ready, he'll go back to Tulsa. I don't think he'll be in the big leagues. There's a chance they could throw him in there, especially toward the end of the season. The Dodgers need an extra bullpen arm. But I do think he'll get a test at Oklahoma City before the season is out, which means this is so selfish. I'm like, I want to see him in the big leagues at 18. He's probably going to be in the big leagues at 19. Like, that's any slouch. So Julio Urias, he's the left-handed minor league Jose Fernandez. That's what it feels like. That's the excitement level, the energy that he brings. On the days when he's starting, you get pumped to put on MILB TV. He's appointment television. He's one of the guys you're going to want to pay to see when he gets to the big league level. So even if it doesn't happen, it's going to happen pretty soon, and he is very, very exciting prospect to keep an eye on.
Yeah, of all the guys, that's the biggest wish on this list, I think, for both of us.
we're both throwing out the Urias thing. I hope Gabe Kapler and the brass in Los Angeles are tuned in. I'm sure they are. Who's not listening?
for us. For us. Not even for Dodgers fans. Just for us.
Just selfishly for the two hosts of the Show Before the Show podcast.
We've been very kind to Dodgers prospects. We got raised and shines to say all those nice things about
Yeah, exactly.
To be a Dodger.
At what point are you going to do something for us, obviously, which is what this is all about. Unbelievable. We got promo stuff fast and furious in this week, episode number 17 of the Show Before the Show, and Benjamin Hill will join us to discuss and dissect it all next. I think of all the times that we have caught up with our good pal Benjamin Hill of Ben's Biz blog, we have not yet had breaking promo news, but today we have big time breaking promo news to welcome Benjamin Hill back to the show. Ben, take it away.
All right, yeah, breaking news. I feel like there should be, when you listen to a news radio station, there's
jump in that dramatic beat.
Yeah, little music in the background and just ticking noises and just the energy of the newsroom. I feel like we need that right now. Breaking news in the world of minor league promotions today, as the Fresno Grizzlies announced that on August 6th, they will change their name to the Fresno Tacos. And yes, that's ridiculous. Yes, it's keeping with the ridiculous nature of minor league promos. They are changing their name to the Fresno Tacos and wearing a hat that has a taco on it and a full Tacos jersey. But I do want to make it clear with this, maybe unlike last year when the Grizzlies did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle thing, that's just kind of capitalizing on nostalgia for 20 years ago. This Fresno Tacos thing, though, it is something truly unique to Fresno. It is. I've been there. I've been to their taco trucks. For the last 5 years, the Fresno Grizzlies have had the taco truck throwdown, where taco trucks from all over the Central Valley region come and sell their tacos, and fans vote on who's the best. It's one of the Grizzlies' biggest promotions, so this is all tied into that. August 6th is the 5th annual taco truck throwdown, so always looking to grow and capitalize on what's become one of their biggest promos and something that's truly regional. They went with the Fresno Tacos and did a great job. They have in-house graphic designers, and if you check out these hats, which they're selling as new era fitteds to whoever wants one, and these taco jerseys are really sharp. They're not as, you're still going to be wearing a shirt that says tacos on it, but they're not nearly as embarrassing, I think, as they could be, and they really do tie into a unique and proud element of Fresno and the California Central Valley.
We're like through the looking glass. When you do a promo of a promo, then you're like through the looking glass of minor league baseball.
Yeah, meta promo.
You talk about this being ridiculous. Some people like bears. Some people like grizzly bears. It's some people's things. I don't know anybody who doesn't like tacos. I am totally. And I gotta say, the lead that you wrote on this story is probably the best piece of writing we've had on the site. I feel like the rest of us should all just quit. In reference to this being a taco promotion following on the success of last year's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle promotion, the opening line is, the Fresno Grizzlies have gone from half shell to the soft shell. Which I just wanted to pat you on the back for that.
And they did. They also clarified on Twitter that it's a corn tortilla. Jesse Spector of the Sporting News asked them today, is it flour or corn? And they did say it's corn. So we know it's soft shell and it's a corn tortilla, which is the superior taco tortilla.
Yeah, and that's the Fresno way of doing things. They are legit in their tacos. And I'm going to call out whoever edited the story. I actually said I called this news tortilla-ly awesome, but that was removed. Oh, no, it isn't.
Oh, no, it's still there. It's still there.
I was looking the wrong place.
Because I just saw our good pal, our former colleague Ash Marshall just called you out for that on Twitter. He said, you lost me with the tortilla-ly awesome line.
Right. If you get lost on that, then you never really had them in the first
place. He's British. They don't have tacos.
Yeah, what does he know about tortillas?
That's true. He still is probably learning what a taco is.
Can't dip that stuff in tea. No, don't do that.
Ben, let's talk about this, though, on kind of a grander scale, because you sort of know how dedicated a team is to a promotional night if they do a hat with it. Because it's easier, I think, for teams to do the special jersey thing, because you can get the jerseys a little bit cheaper. OT Sports or whoever can run them off. You can do them on kind of shorter notice. But if you go the full distance of getting New Era to make up fitted on-field hats, you are a little bit further into the promotional stratosphere with that particular promo. Have you ever seen a team go this big into not just a promotion doing the tacos thing, but spinning that off of another promotion. I mean, it's, kind of like I said, like we're in the Matrix where Fresno has this promo, it's Taco Truck Throwdown, and now they're doing a promo dedicated to that promo. Like this, have you seen something like this before?
No, I haven't. And that's why I do think it's important to kind of acknowledge this promotion as one of the better ones, because it's not just a front office brainstorming saying, what was something we had nostalgia for that's coming up on an anniversary that's 25 years old, that's 30 years old, and we can capitalize on. This is them saying, we created something that's so popular that now we're going to wear theme jerseys based on something we created. I mean, they did not invent the taco, but they have a very successful taco truck throwdown. And to do that, and as you said, create the hat, you almost never see other elements to these theme nights when in terms of what the players wear, except the jerseys, and to have the hat as well, and to have that for sale to the fan, and not just obtainable via a post-game auction is really showing the commitment to this. And I imagine the Lehigh Valley bacon hats, the Montgomery biscuits are a perennial big seller. I think these taco hats will probably catch on, not just among Grizzlies fans, but that subset of sports fans that go nuts for the unique fitted caps. So the Grizzlies are smart, and I know they're probably expecting some nice proceeds from this.
I'm one of those people, by the way. I have like 90 fitted hats. I am absolutely one of those people. Anyway.
Well, it seems like putting food on your hat is a great way to stretch outside even the baseball fan population and get to the people who just like wearing hats, which is people who don't just play baseball. I think I've seen some bacon hats on people who don't maybe not be baseball fans. It seems like good branding. Expecting more of that.
Yeah, because who doesn't like food? I talked to a team once that we're going to do a barbecue hat, but then it turned out they didn't want a brisket.
Well, the brisket just didn't look good?
Yeah.
It's harder to translate, just meat.
Benjamin Hill, we're talking all kinds of weird promo stuff, but we're also going to cover, you've been on like 19 different road trips this season, and you're still churning out some content from your past one, which was through the Virginias, and some really cool stories that came out of that. I mean, we talked about the story of the official schedule creator in the International League, but there's been some really neat fan-dedicated stories that have come out of that trip as well. Potomac has a really cool one, and Potomac, if you've ever been to G. Richard Fitzner Stadium in Potomac, it is kind of like a Mad Max baseball facility. It's not the frilzy 21st century baseball park that you've become accustomed to in minor league baseball. It's very bare bones. It's metal bleachers. It's kind of set in suburbia. It's not that front end new age ballpark, but that doesn't mean that they don't have the community ties. And this is a really cool story.
Yeah, that's something I really try to highlight on these trips. Fitzner Stadium, the Fitz. Is it an appropriate ballpark for a team that plays in the greater DC area? Like, no. It's more on the community softball field end of the equation. It's obviously better than that. But I like visiting places like that, and I like finding the stories within them, because just because a place has a bad stadium or a underwhelming stadium, a lot of people who just only know the situation superficially are just like, why would I go there? And to me, it's of course you'd go there, because there's fans everywhere. There's good stories everywhere. There's a unique culture everywhere. So when I was there, I visited Ken's Place, an area down the right field line that is dedicated to a fan named Ken Roskowski, who died about 8 years ago suddenly. He was only in his mid-40s. And Ken's Place is just an attempt by his fellow fans. Ken was at almost every Potomac Nationals game. And it's just an attempt by his fans, largely just kind of group of guys who he would, trash talk with, hang out with, talk baseball with, have beers with. They still gather every game at Ken's Place. And, as I point out in the story, it did seem like a local bar, where everybody kind of knows each other. They tell the same old stories. They have a lot of great banter and kind of funny dialogue. And it's great to come to a stadium and kind of be welcomed into that world, however briefly, and get a sense of what the culture is. And then when you leave that place, you can say, I enjoyed that. It's not just some old dump of a stadium. It has character, and why not visit?
Yeah, speaking of culture and whatnot, I know you're heading back on the road on Monday, and you were starting in New Orleans, which sounds like a cool place to fly into. Maybe not so much in late July, early August, but tell us a little bit about what the next trip for you entails.
Yeah, as I finish all my Virginia trip content this week, hopefully, knock on wood, I will be leaving on Monday for New Orleans, Nolans, and that's where my next trip will start. visiting the Zephyrs, and a big highlight of that trip, I'm also going to see the Biloxi Shuckers. And I hadn't realized this when I made the itinerary. I'm actually going to be in Biloxi on the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and in New Orleans just the day before. So I'm not sure if that will come into play, but that's kind of a little unsettling to think how badly that region was hit, and also inspiring to think how much has changed since then.
It's also crazy to think that it's been 10 years already since then.
10 years, that's a whole nother element. But visiting Biloxi Shuckers, who got a late start in opening their ballpark because the construction was delayed, but they're in full swing right now, so really interested to see what's going on with them. Buck Rogers, who used to be the Huntsville Stars GM, relocated with the club, and he's, when I think of GMs in minor league baseball that just have a ton of personality, he's one of them. So he's always good for quotes and a story, and just to kind of push the atmosphere a little weirder, zanier, or high energy than you thought it might go. So really interesting to see what he's doing in Biloxi. And the trip ends, not to give short shrift to the other teams I'm visiting, but it ends in Nashville, where the Sounds have a new park. So this trip, I'm not really looking forward to the heat, the deep south in late July into August, but I think some really unique destinations, and really looking forward to seeing what I see, and hopefully a lot of good material comes out of it.
When you go to New Orleans, are you doing something on Austin Nola, playing for Nola? Is that on your list?
It hadn't been, but...
So I feel like that happened. I know they got a little attention just when it happened, but I haven't seen anything. I feel like we need to.
Here's the problem with that, though, is the jerseys that they have that say NOLA on the front don't have names on the back. That's the problem.
Really?
So Ben, you got to go and say, like, for one night, can't you just sew everybody's names onto the jerseys, or at least his? At least put NOLA's name on the NOLA jersey.
Yeah, that's a good angle. That's why I need to talk to more people before I leave. I know a lot of stuff about my world, but sometimes I can lose it a little bit when it comes to the rosters and those connections. So keep talking to me, everybody. Give me your ideas.
Shoot your ideas to Ben on Twitter. He is at Ben's Biz. You can also check out the blog, bensbiz.mlblogs.com. There's a lot of really good stuff from the Virginia's trip up there, and soon to be a lot of good stuff from this. Jake, what did you call it? The Delta drive-through? The Delta Drive?
Yeah, the Delta Drive, I guess.
Yeah, why not? That sounds like a country band, but not like a terrible one. Not like a, some of them are just, oof. Delta Drive sounds like one that I might go, all right, maybe I'd listen to that. I don't know.
I'm with you on that.
That's coming up next. That's the next stage for our good pal Ben Hill. And Ben, enjoy, man. Have some, I'm not big into Cajun food, but there will be a lot of barbecue around, so enjoy that if you want a brisket. Nailed it!
Good callback, man. I appreciate it.
Wrapping up the 17th edition of Minor League Baseball is the Show Before the Show podcast. Our big thanks to Ben Hill for joining us from the offices today. He's headed out on the road again on Monday, so be sure to follow Ben on Twitter at Ben's Biz. Jake's on Twitter as well. He's at Jake_Signer, and I am at Tyler Mon, and you can follow MILB at MILB. And speaking of MILB, we got some good stuff coming up on MILB TV this week. Jake, take it away.
Yeah, we're hoping to have this out by Thursday morning, and if that's the case, I can tell you that Henry Owens is going to be throwing for Pawtucket at noon on Thursday. He's been much better of late, had some command problems early in the season, but seems to be coming into his own, put together a couple good starts. And we are crossing our fingers. We're going to have Julio Urias back in Double-A at some point in the near future. He's made 2 starts now in the Arizona League, might get one more. Maybe we'll get bumped up to Tulsa pretty soon, but expecting him to be back on our MILB TV cameras pretty soon. Beyond that, for Dodgers fans, I'm writing a thing on Alex Verdugo right now, who's breaking out in the Midwest League. Had a rough first 2 months and has been really, really good, hitting like 350 over the last 2 months with some power. So you can read about how he's doing that. And I think that's pretty much everything that I have to plug at this point.
You can find all of that pertinent information at MILB.TV. And until next week, where I'm sure we will have heat stroke-related things to discuss with Benjamin Hill. Hopefully not for him, but I cannot imagine going to the Deep South in July. Like, I would love to go visit New Orleans and all those places, but, man, late July, I feel like.
I went there in September 2 years ago. As like the season is over, this is I'm going to take my little vacation.
Yeah,
it was awful. It was great. I had a great trip, but it was so hot.
Just bring Ben a bag of ice packs to the office tomorrow. Take these with you. We don't need you getting overheated, Ben.
I can't. That's being outside at a ballpark in that heat, or the guys have to play in that heat. Oh,
sounds like fun. All kinds of fun. Better him than us. Enjoy it, Ben! And enjoyed episode number 17 of the show. We'll talk to you guys next week.